I need to use this microphone for the camera back here. First, I'd like to thank you for coming, and especially I'd like to welcome Stefan Axelsson for coming to talk to us about customer relationship management. And he's a really excellent person to be talking about this. He has nearly 20 years of experience, first at Heisenberg in Sweden, then at GE Capital, later some consulting, Dell Computer, and now he is the Senior Director of Customer Relationship Management at Promsvyazbank. So with that, I'd like to welcome and thank Stefan Axelsson.
Well, it's easy to confuse. Some people call me Axel sometimes. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but it doesn't really matter. Thank you very much for having me here. I think the first question I'd like to ask, just to get a feel for the room, how many of you are currently students of the university? Hands up. 2 people. Okay. Because it wasn't really easy for me to know what is interesting. It depends on what experience you have before. This presentation is not really for me to explain, should we say, the ins and outs of CRM. That was not really the purpose. You can read that in books. The purpose for me was more to try to explain why different companies view CRM differently and do different things. And is that justified or is it not? And that's really the purpose. I think I will go on for maybe 40 minutes, and then let's leave 15-20 minutes for questions. I don't know how many questions you will have, but we will figure it out. If you have a question while I'm presenting, it's okay, raise your hand, and you can ask that question during the presentation if you like. How many of you know what a word cloud is? Some people know what a word cloud is. Okay, so this is a word cloud, and what it basically does is it takes a text and it shows in the boldest and largest fonts, it shows the words that are most frequently in this text. The smaller the letters, the less frequent it is in the text. And this one, I just took the text in Wikipedia, where I put in CRM, and this is what you get. So obviously CRM is mentioned many times because that's what the whole article is about. But we can also discern some other things here. We can see customers, we can see relationship, software, social, management, systems. So directionally, that's pretty much what it's all about. But how do you put all this together? How does this make sense? And what is CRM really? So, just very, very quickly, most of this was already kind of said. I've been around for a while in a number of companies, and so I have business to consumer, business to business experience, and a little bit in between. So from September last year, I'm heading up CRM for Promsvyazbank here in Russia. Anyone does not hear me clearly? It works well? No issues? Yeah? Okay. Good. So, CRM. Well, this is from a French bayou, or kind of wall painting. I think it's 14th century. So if you see this guy here, it's a marketplace, right? So if you see this guy here, let's pretend that's me, and then there is a salesperson. So I come up to the salesperson, and he says, "Hello, Mr. Axelsson. Thank you for coming back to me. Last time you bought the red cloth from me? And I say, yes, and today I would like to buy the blue one. I would like 2 meters of it, I say. And he says, okay, well, that's fine. By the way, I can offer you 4 meters instead for the price of 3. How would you like that? And I says, well, that sounds like a good deal. And then he says, and by the way, I'm now also selling furs. I saw that your very, very pretty wife walking around the other day, and I'm sure she would like a fur. So, how's that CRM? Well, there are a couple of important points to understand. First, he knows who I am, right? He recognizes that I've been there before. He understands that he can sell more to me than I'm asking for. He also understands that there is an opportunity because I have a family, I have a wife, so maybe he can cross-sell other products that he has. So my point here is that they knew how to do CRM already in the 14th century. It wasn't automated, but it was very good. He knows his customer. He knows what his customer wants. If you do that, you can do very, very good CRM. Okay, so let's ask some modern people what CRM is. So, first one out is Siebel. Siebel says, CRM is a way to identify, acquire, and retain customers, the business' greatest assets. You know, I can agree to that. Especially, I would say, I would pick out, identify, acquire, and retain customers. Now, already the 14th century guy, he had me identified, he had already acquired me, and he was trying to retain me. So, by selling more, I think that sounds reasonable. Next out is Wikipedia, a widely implemented model for managing companies' interactions, customers, clients, and sales prospects. Now notice how they're quite different. They don't really say the same thing. But there is something here that I would pick up, and that is interactions. Third out, we have Gartner. It's a very, very respected research company, and they spend a little bit more words on figuring out what CRM is. But it's an enterprise-wide business strategy, and you should optimize profitability, revenue, and satisfaction, blah, 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 organizing all the way out, linking processes from customers to suppliers. Now, the important thing here is profitability, revenue, and customer satisfaction. The other two don't mention that, right? Fourth out, Microsoft. It's an application, of course Microsoft would say that, used to automate sales and marketing functions, to manage sales service activities in an organization. Now the key word here is to automate sales and marketing functions. Lastly, it's an online paper called CRM Forecast. Business strategy directed to understand, anticipate, and respond to the needs of an enterprise. Now, the key word for me here is really anticipate. You want to try to figure out what the customer will do, not only what he has done, and what are his needs. So, in my world, I would say neither of these definitions really describe what CRM is. It depends on, and I will show you later that most things, when it comes to defining anything with CRM, is that it depends on. But these yellow areas, I think, are important because they kind of lead into my own personal definition. And I'm not saying this is the right one. I'm just saying this is the one that I like. Oops, grow the relationship value. Of course we want to do that. So my personal one that I usually say is to expand and extend the relationship with the customer in a profitable way, using customer insight and analytics to communicate offers where customers want to be communicated to. So, is this a perfect definition? No, probably not. It depends on what kind of company you have, what kind of market you're working in. It depends on what your organization looks like. It depends on a lot of things. But this is the one I usually use when it comes to bank. Okay. So really any bank or any for-profit organization, really, what do they want from CRM? And I think the answer is pretty obvious. It's increased profits if it is for a for-profit organization. So how can you do that? Well, there are really only two ways you can increase profits. You can either reduce cost or you can increase your revenue. So when a company thinks about what is CRM and what do I want from it, these are the two obvious ones. If we drill one step further down, of course, reducing cost means that you can, for example, automate tasks that are manual today. That will help you save money. It is also widely known that it's much cheaper to keep an existing customer than to acquire a new one. So if you retain a customer, that will help you and increase your revenues. So drilling a little bit further down, and the reason why I put the thick bar here is really that when I come to a company, and maybe some of you have been at other companies and that say different things, but the ones I've met, when they think how to do CRM, they don't really go very far below this thick line. Usually, this is the point where they hire consultants. How do we do CRM? I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying it is usually the level of knowledge in many companies. Now, we know a little bit more about CRM, so we drill a little bit further down. Of course, automating manual tasks, that's campaign management. You can automate your call center. You can have automatic voice response. And you can ask me, is that CRM? Well, I say it is. Depends on how you define CRM, right? What is it? In terms of retaining existing customers, of course, you can sell more to them. You can sell me 4 meters of cloth instead of 2. That's a very good idea. You can prevent them from leaving by understanding that they are about to leave. You can do that through analytics. You should give them relevant and timely offers. So if I go up to the guy at the stand and I say, I want to buy 2 meters of cloth, and he says, yes, I can also give you a wedding dress for your wife. And I say, well, we got married last week. That's not a timely offer, right? So the more information you have, you're able to make your offers timely. Now, preferred customer touchpoints, that's also kind of intuitive, but most companies don't really get that. So if a customer, I'm a customer, and I want to communicate with a gas company or electricity. So what I do is I send them an email, and they reply back to me with a letter in my mailbox. Why would they do that? Maybe that's the standard, because that's what they usually do. They send letters. But if I talk to them through email, wouldn't I want the response back in email? Isn't that my preferred channel? Especially if I, after having read their paper mail, reply back to them again through email. There is a trend here. There is something that you should try to think about when we want to select what media and what way we talk to our clients. Okay. Other things we can do In terms of reducing cost, we can target customers better. So let's say we have 1 million customers in a database. I want to get as much revenue out of that database as I can. So let's say I'm selling a credit card. Now, I can send 1 million emails, or I can send 1 million SMSs, or I can send 1 million product catalogs for credit cards. And I will know how many will reply, how many positive responses will I have. Now, if I send 1 million paper catalogs talking about credit cards, for example, that's going to be quite expensive. It's going to cost me a lot of money. So I don't want to send 1 million. I want to send maybe 50,000. And I would like to have 90% of the same sales volume I would have had if I had mailed them all. That's not rocket science. That's a statistical response model. Very doable. It was doable already 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But most companies don't do it. I'll show you later. I worked for Dell. When I came, we sent 20 million 36-page product catalogs to the same number of companies in 13 countries in Europe in 12 different languages. That's very expensive, and it doesn't really make sense. You have to think about who are you targeting, and why, and how can you do it in a cheap way, or in a, let's say, profitable way. Okay, at some point, there should also be customer satisfaction. Logically, if you talk to a customer with something that he believes is relevant, and you do it in a timely fashion, and you do it through a channel he likes, logically that leads at least not to customer dissatisfaction. What companies normally want is also to be able to measure, to have some good key performance indicators, and some kind of reporting. So if we just dress up the picture a little bit, this is pretty much what the bank would want from CRM. So I wonder how many banks actually have this. Well, that's actually a good question. I think a lot do, actually. But there are different levels of maturity, and may not have everything, but some parts of it. So this is all fine and good, but how do you actually make money? Is there money in this? Well, we want to reduce cost, we want to increase revenue, but where does it come from? Where does the money come from? So I'm just going to pick two of these, one on the cost side and one on the increased revenue side. So the one on the cost side I actually already mentioned. That is, as an example, a targeted propensity model or response model. So depending on the data you have and the strength of your model, you can, for example, just throwing some numbers out, well, let's use these numbers actually. We could spend 50% less money, but we could still maintain, say, 85% of the sales volume, of the same volume we would have gotten if we had targeted all the million customers. Does that make sense? Instead of mailing 1 million customers and getting 100% of the sales, we mail half of the customers and we get 85% of all the sales. That's a pretty good deal. It's a very cost-efficient way of talking to customers. There's money to save. In terms of retaining existing customers, well, let's say they are loan customers. So what it would mean for me in the bank, I'm just giving you one example here. So let's say we lose 20% fewer customers per year. Promsvyazbank has 7 different selling business units. This is for our retail bank only. This is only for the consumer piece. There are 6 others. So, but for the retail bank only, let's say we lose 20% fewer customers per year. That gives us 500 million rubles extra in income per year. Now, if there are loan assets, it kind of accumulates over time. So if we measure it in a 3-year, interest on interest and so on, then we're talking maybe 3 billion rubles. So how do you not lose 20% of the customers that you normally lose? Now that's CRM. How do you not lose them? What can you do? Some of it we've already talked about. You can sell, like I said, sell more to them, prevent them from leaving. And it sounds simple, but how do you prevent someone from leaving? Okay. And I'm not going to tell. So, let's discuss just a little bit around who does CRM. What is that? So, I've seen each of these departments in different companies and different countries own CRM as a concept. IT. Why would IT own CRM? Probably because the company that puts CRM in IT sees it as an IT system. CRM is an IT system. You buy it, you implement it, and it works. Maybe. I've never seen it, but actually there are some companies that do that. They see it as an IT project. I strongly disagree, but it's being done. Finance, well, if you can increase revenue and you can reduce cost, not the least, it's extremely interesting for finance. So maybe finance should be in control of CRM. It happens. What about the risk department? In a bank, we unfortunately have the issue that we cannot give money to all the people we want to give money to. We can only give to the ones we think will actually pay us back. So, the risk department maybe should own CRM. It happens. I've seen it. And it works fairly well. The only issue is that CRM is not like trying to acquire many new customers aggressively, not trying to increase the limits of credit cards, not doing a lot of, should we say, breakthrough stuff. Why? Well, obviously, the risk thinks it's too risky. So what about marketing then? CRM in marketing, that's the most common model. That's where it usually is. And what would happen here, as opposed to there, is, of course, it would be very aggressive, and we would like to give a lot of new credit lines to a lot of our customers to increase our sales and our revenues. But then risk will come and say, no, that's not a good idea. So wherever you put it, really, there is always a built-in kind of issue or friction. But normally, it is being kept in marketing. And if you ask me personally, I would say that's the best out of these 4 choices. The last option is to make it a separate unit, so that it's not depending on either of these. It's not depending on a retail bank or a corporate bank or IT or anywhere else. And that's the model that we have chosen for Promsvyazbank. So CRM is an independent unit. Of course, that means a couple of things. It means that it can be a constant struggle between different wills, trying to make all these departments work together to actually produce an outcome. I guess that's the main issue of having CRM as a separate function. Okay, I think I'm being a little bit too slow.
Stefan, what about the client department?
The what?
Client department.
The client department. You mean if it is within a business unit? It could be. So the question here is, what if we have, like in Promsvyazbank, we have 7 different business units. So let's say we have the retail bank, we have the corporate bank, we have a small and medium business bank. Why is it not in there, in either of those? And you duplicate it. Well, anything goes. Could be. I just don't think that it would be creating very many synergies between business units. Another thing is, if you want to buy IT systems to handle, to automate these 14th century processes that we were talking about, that's a fairly expensive thing, and you would rather have one platform than to have 4 different ones that are being managed. You would also want an overview of these different business units so that you can do cross-sell between the business units. Thanks for the question. Okay, just quickly, parts of CRM. I don't expect you to read this, so rather listen to what I say than read the slide. There are 2 very different parts, really, of CRM. One is called analytical, the other one is called operational. So, in terms of analytical CRM, if you don't learn anything else about CRM, then just know that the data is the most important thing there is. Without good data, CRM is completely useless, and it will hurt you more than it will help you. Data is, and I cannot stress enough the importance of having good data. So, data quality. So, I come to my friend, let's say his name is Andre, in the 14th century setting, and I say, I would like to buy my 2 meters of blue cloth. And he says, fine, Mr. Axelsson, and I can also give you 4 meters for the price of 3. We've been there, we know that. But then he says, and I also sell furs. I can sell a fur to you, to your beautiful wife. And then I say, well, she died last month. That's not good data quality. He doesn't know my wife died. It's a macabre example, I realize that. But to bring the point, if you don't know updates about what happens about your customers, if you don't know they moved, you don't know if your customer is alive or not, that really kills any kind of communication that you can do. That's why I'm saying the data, the completeness, the depth, and the quality is absolutely critical in any kind of CRM. Or analysis, or just reporting for that matter. So anyway, what happens in analytical CRM is take care of the data. It can be extremely complex. You can have 50, I think Sberbank has 200 different source systems. You can just imagine to get all the data. We have fewer in PSB, but imagine just taking all this data and making something reasonable out of it. Maybe the same customer is in several different systems. How do you deduplicate this? It's science to a very, very high degree to actually make this good and clean. Once you have that though, then comes the customer insight. So you try to generate some tangible knowledge. I talked before about the statistical models. We can figure out, for example, based on the history we have on a customer, we can figure out with statistical significance what is the product we should offer him next time that he's most likely to accept and that is most likely to be profitable for the bank. That's not rocket science. It's being done in many places. We can calculate what is the lifetime value of a customer that is new to us. How can we do that? We don't know who he is really yet. Well, we can because his socio-demographics are the same as other customers that have a certain profile, a certain lifetime value. So when he just knocks on the door, I know how much money I will make on that guy. It's being done. It's not very difficult if you have the good data. Once we know what we want to give to the customer, then we move over into the operational kind of CRM, which is where you actually create a campaign. And you can do many different things. You can do, like we said before, we need to retain customers. How do we do that? And I said I wouldn't tell you, but I will anyway. For example, we can have an early warning system. So what's that? Well, very easy example. Let's say we have a deposit customer in the bank. He comes in every month, or he uses the internet bank. He puts in 50,000 rubles every month on a deposit account. So, what if he didn't do that last month? He's broken a trend. He's done something differently. Is that something worth listening to? Well, it probably is. That's an early warning system. It's extremely simple. And of course you can do that on any other kind of event or occasion or breaking of trends that your customers do. So, we have a campaign. We choose also how do we want to talk to the customers. Already covered that. If the customer wants to speak to me through email, I should tell him whatever I want to offer him through email. Maybe I also want to do it in sequence. So first I send him an SMS, and then my call center calls him. Maybe that's a good idea. You don't know beforehand. You test. You test and you test and you test, and you learn. So, where can you do all this? And this is where all the flashy tools come on. So, if someone says, which is the best CRM to buy? That's not a weird question. Well, it's a weird question to me, but it's not an unusual question. It's a very, very, very common question. If you look at any site that talks about CRM, where they have a forum or something, it's on LinkedIn. I'm a member of 20 different groups on LinkedIn. I see this question every day. Which is the best CRM to buy? And I don't understand the question. All of this, what about all of this? This is just the IT platform that you put it on. All the thinking you've done, all the business rules you've created, all the logics, all the tests you have done. What about that? Well, like I said, some companies consider CRM to be an IT system. So which CRM should I buy? Should I buy Siebel, SAS, SET, Epiphany, Sugar? And there are different ones. If you're a huge corporation, if you're a medium-sized business, if you're a small-sized business. I'm certainly not saying that any of the software is not good, because it is good. If you have something intelligent to fill it with. If you have done the work before to figure out what you want your system to do. Feel free to disagree with me if anyone wants to do. Okay. I have actually talked myself away from these very nice animations, so we don't need to talk about those animations. Okay. I will leave that piece, but what we can conclude is that this is a really big machinery that involves virtually every department in a bank or any other company. You cannot figure out who your salespeople, how do you attach a team of salespeople to a client? Well, you can do that in these sales tools. What if one of them leaves the company? Well, maybe it's a good idea to have this sales tool connected to our HR base so that we get an automatic update. Maybe we need to connect it also to our sales base so we know if there was a transaction being done yesterday. Maybe the sales guy didn't know about it. Anyway, it's intertwined. It all needs to work together, like a cogwheel, or many cogwheels. And this is, to get all this right, is a very big thing. It's nothing you do on a coffee break. So, I'll move on a little bit quicker. Do you need the whole enchilada? How many knows what an enchilada is? You're not allowed to say. No one knows what an enchilada is? Okay, well.
Sounds like Mexican food, right?
Yes, exactly. It's Mexican food. It's a cornbread tortilla in which you put whatever kind of stuff. You can put a lot of things into it. Now, in Spanish, the word actually comes from the Spanish verb enchilar, which means to add chili. That has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But the American version of the whole enchilada, that means everything. So, do you want the whole enchilada? Basically means, do you want all of it? Do you want everything? So, if you don't learn anything else today, then that's an enchilada. That's what it looks like. So, it depends. It depends. And I've already basically explained to you why it depends. It depends on what kind of company we're talking about. So let me just give you a few examples of companies I worked for. I've already mentioned part of this before, but I'll run through it quickly. So, Resource Bank, that's where I started my career as a trainee, 1994, in Helsingborg, Sweden. It's a company that was like a niche finance company. They did private label credit cards for two home electronics, two very large, the largest home electronics retailers in Sweden. Very simple sales model of these cards. A company or a customer walks into a store and he wants to buy a TV. And he says, can I have it on 12 months interest-free payment? And the salesperson says, yes, you can. Let me just call Resource Bank and we will check if you can get the loan. So they called us. We made a credit approval over the phone. The guy signs a contract and he can walk away with his TV. We send him a card that he can use again. And everyone is happy. Hopefully the customer would pay back. Many times they did, actually. So what I was charged with was, how do we sell other products to these people? Because eventually you kind of get tired of only selling private label credit cards. So we wanted to sell personal loans. So, as a simple example, what I figured out was that we sent out around 600,000 paper statements every month to customers that had taken these cards. And I realized that there was always empty space at the bottom. So, my idea was, why not make an offer on that statement for a personal loan? And they could send that little piece at the bottom back to us. So that's pretty much what we did. I was sitting myself with a programmer. We had an AS400 computer, which had all the financials, everything, our whole company base. I don't know if anyone knows anymore what an AS400 is, but it's a little bit better than the Commodore 20. No one knows what that is either, so. Well, it's not a very powerful computer. Anyway, we figured out who are the customers based on some criteria that we made up, are most likely to want this personal loan. And then we printed it on the statements, and we sent it out, and we got these stubs, or mini applications sent back to us. And eventually, that became almost half of the business, half of the size of the business. So what's the story in that, really? Well, it is that by having an idea and by using very, very small means, you can do very, very good CRM. CRM, cross-sell, upsell, call it whatever you like. I don't really care what we call it. The main point is that we made some customers happy because they needed personal loans. And my company was very happy because we grew our sales by almost 2 times. And it was one full-time person doing all this. Very simple. So, for a small to medium company, you don't need the whole enchilada. At least not in this case. Okay, moving on. Large business to consumer company. GE. I think most of you have heard about General Electric and their subsidiary GE Money Bank. We have actually, I don't know how many offices they have in Moscow, but I've seen at least 4 or 5. And I know the guy who is the CEO for GE Money Bank in Russia. I worked with him in Germany. So for GE Money, I worked in 5 different countries, and I encountered basically 5 different ways and level of maturity when it comes to CRM. In some countries, CRM was a unit that was responsible for all sales to existing customers. It's a profit and loss center. It's a P&L, and it does all marketing and sales once a customer comes in the door, is acquired. In other countries, it was not. It didn't work that way at all. CRM was more like a enabler and a consultant to marketing and sales. And sales had all the sales, whether it was new clients or existing clients. In some countries, we had an excellent database. All our customers were very nicely structured in the database. In other countries, maybe GE has acquired 2 or 3 different banks and said, now you're all GE. Well, that's great, but we have 3 different kinds of financial systems, and our customers are spread over 3 different databases. How do you do CRM on that? Maybe the same customer is in all 3. It happens. Definitely does. One common thing for all 5 countries, and the companies that I worked for GE was when I showed up, none of them had a campaign management system. This was between 2000 and 2008. You would imagine that a company the size of GE would have a campaign management system. No, none of them did. Some extracted some customer files and sent some letters or some offers, but very, very, very basic. Before I came. Okay. So where we usually ended up in the different companies within GE was that we built what I showed you before, the analytical and operational CRM. We built up a very good database. We had excellent analytics teams who were able to build all kinds of strategical models, customer segmentation based on profitability, based on whatever else. And we manually made a lot of campaigns to customers based on this. In short, we had an excellent analytical CRM. But none of those companies, and as far as I know, they still don't have any of the operational CRM. So when do you need operational CRM, really? If you can make, and I would claim that in most cases you can make most of the possible money to make by having only analytical CRM. The Siebel, the SAP. I will skip the next country. I will skip Dell. If anyone wants to hear more about Dell, you can ask me later. I cannot skip Promsvyazbank. Like I said, we do both business to business and business to consumer. And this is where it makes sense to have a good operational CRM tool. The analytical CRM becomes much more complicated because tying all these business units together, these 7 I talked to you about, and trying to make sense out of if a corporate client, for example, we could have 20 other companies in our database, and maybe they are all, or some of them, are subsidiaries of this corporate client. Do we know that for sure? Not always. It's not obvious. So you need to implement what you would call like a holding structure. So which is the top company, or which are the subsidiaries? What industries do they work in? One funny example is Gazprom. If you look at the industry that Gazprom is in, the official registry says it's consulting. Gazprom is a consulting. Okay. You have to make sense out of all this data. And to be able to do this cross-sell between different business units. For example, if we were to have Gazprom, I don't think we do actually, but if we had Gazprom as a corporate client, it would naturally be one of the very, very, very largest ones. Our retail bank would be extremely, extremely interested in coming to Gazprom and talk to them about salary accounts. That's an excellent cross-sell opportunity between something as diverse as a corporate bank and a retail bank. And there are many, many other examples for that. But to be able to handle all this data, that's when a operational CRM platform is very, very good. Okay. So we're about a year into our development development of CRM at Promsvyazbank. Some would argue that we are 5 years in. Depends on when you want history to start. Personally, I would start from just before I came to the bank. So let's just say we're about a year in terms of serious development. I figured that we have at least 2 more years to go, according to my roadmap, to build up something that I would call internationally high-class financial CRM. A couple of our business units have some of the functionality that I've shown you, but in no way we have everything. We don't. On the other hand, we know where we want to go, which is a good thing. My personal view for banking in Russia, and I'm just generalizing now, but I would say that the market has been growing quite aggressively. Loans and credits since the crash 2008. Anywhere you walk in the street, you see little paper that says credit everywhere. I think there are over 400 banks just in Moscow, different ones. And no one's really suffering or stealing a lot of clients from each other. It's like there's just enough supply, or enough demand rather, in the market for many, many banks to make a lot of money. Now, I'm saying that that's not going to go on forever. If we look at the maturity in markets like the US and the European Union, the picture is completely different. There are fairly few banks. There are niche banks, but the ones that are fairly large and do everything, they are fighting fiercely between each others about taking clients from each other. So, I'm not an economist, but I'm guessing give it a few more years and we will start seeing some interesting changes in the banking market. And I'm guessing that the banks that know how to take care of their customers and that are prepared with good analytics and good CRM will survive fairly well. The ones who don't, I don't think will survive very well. I'm way over my time. Anyway, just very quickly, some takeaways from what I've said. We need the cooperation of all business functions, and someone must lead it. Was it IT? Was it CRM by itself? Was it marketing? It just needs to be decided. The whole enchilada, that's very, very expensive. Most companies don't need it. CRM is not an IT system. It is not something you buy off the shelf. You have some IT guys install, and then you say, we have CRM. It doesn't work that way. And this is, I guess, mainly reinforcing that, because you still have to do most of the work yourself. You need to figure out which business rules do you need in your company. What are the campaigns that we want to run? How do we want to approach our customer? How do we want to talk to him? A CRM system will not tell you that. It all starts with the data. Data not good, CRM not good. Again, I have been in companies where we bought huge, enormously expensive CRM systems. Industrial, corporate value, millions and millions and millions of euros. And we end up using maybe 40% of all the functionality that's in there. Why? Well, mainly because when the requirements are made from the business side, you don't really know What is it that we need? Lastly, the most expensive CRM you can buy is the one that you don't use. That was some pretty wise words from a guy who's actually selling CRM systems, James Boyd. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.
Are there questions? If there are, I'd like to give you the microphone.
Stefan, thanks for the nice talk. My question is about the very beginning, the numbers, like 50% of your costs, which you save, will also cost you losing 15% of your sales, right?
Correct.
Well, I'm just thinking, what kind of, I don't know,
Like a call center. So there are various degrees of efficiency in these different channels. And it's not all about finding the cheapest one. It's about finding the correct mix between the how advanced and effective each channel is, and how much it costs and how much you're getting back for it. So I don't think there is a simple answer, really, to your question. It always depends on what your specific company looks like, what your specific sales model looks like, what costs you have in that. But social media is definitely the hot thing. It needs to be more explored, though. Anyone else?
Okay, Stefan, you stressed that it's extremely important to keep your data updated and client.
Yes.
So how exactly you does this? Because well, if your client has a credit card, you will know something about him. But if you, if he or she just take credit on some product, then goes away, and you don't know about this client for years.
Yeah.
So do you have some instrument that helps you to find more clients?
Data quality is a topic that I could spend a whole day on, just talking about data quality. And I find it extremely interesting myself. I get really excited when I talk about data quality, which kind of makes me maybe a really big nerd. But, well, how do you do it? There are several different ways. You can talk about data freshness, which is a little bit about what you're mentioning now. But you can also talk about data completeness. So, do I have not only your postal address, but do I also have your email and your cell phone number? Or maybe those fields are blank, and I only have your home address. Now, that's an issue if I want to send emails, because I don't have your email address. I don't want to use your home address, which is correct and nice and fine, because I consider it to be too expensive to send you a direct mail. How do I solve that issue? Well, it could be that in the credit application form, you didn't fill it in. You only filled in your home address. And from our side, from the bank, no one checked. No one asked you, but why could you please also fill in your email address and your cell phone number? Well, we probably didn't. That's an issue. So you need to look at the processes that you have in your company to actually collect the data. How do you make sure that we always get not only your home address, but also your email and your cell phone number? You educate the people that talk to you as a client, and so on and so forth. There can also be mistakes. It could be that we have several different source systems in our bank, and you are present in both. But there is a little difference in your name because someone keyed it in wrong. So we're not sure if this is the same person or not. Then there is software, deduplication software, that matches all different clients that look similar or have similar names. And it can give you a certain degree of security whether it is the same person or it's not the same person. Whether the address is correct or not, it can check against address registries. It can check if your email domain exists. It can check if your cell phone number is valid or not. Does it have the number of digits it should have? So, step one, make sure that when you collect your data, you actually have people who are trained and understand why we need the data. That's step one. Why do we need this data? And then you can always have different kinds of software with algorithms that check if this data is reasonable or not. And if it's not, it will flag it and say, this needs a manual check. Call this person, ask him. Thirdly, we can realize that this kind of data we don't have at all. Then, potentially, we can buy it. We can go to Interfax. We can go to Dun & Bradstreet. We can go, and then it's more like a data append. You append information that you currently don't have on your clients. So, some automated ways, some ways that it's just common sense. But it's wonderfully important. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yes, to some extent. I actually mentioned something different. My question was more about if you keep track of your client, so what he's doing now, what he's about to do. Maybe he's going to buy a car, maybe he's, and you can offer him something different.
Okay. Okay. Well, then it's not. Let's just assume then that the quality of the data is actually trustworthy, and we move on to the kind of analytics space. So, what can we do with the information that we have? What I mentioned a couple of times, you can definitely do statistical response models. They are very objective. They take data and they spot which specific information, which specific variables are significant when it comes to will the customer buy this product or not. And it works. And it has nothing to do really with like we spy on the customer, trying to understand well, cookies on websites, where does he go? It is more just pure data driven. So if we have information, it would be information that is related to his transactions with us as a bank. It would be information, pretty normal information like income. It would be where he lives. So tracking, there's no hocus pocus really. It's more, we have the data we have, and we use a data-driven approach to figure out what does this data tell us. And it never singles out a specific customer. What it does is it shows a group of customers with similar characteristics. And to that group, you can extend an offer, which makes sense to them, hopefully. Okay.
Are there any other questions?
You said that the optimal way of organizing CRM process in the company is centralizing it, so that one maybe department manages all the steps in this process. You mentioned that you come to the company where it's not decentralized. For example, each business unit, sales unit operates response models, sales organization, collects feedback, etc. And it works fine. What arguments will you use to persuade top management that it should be actually centralized, and whether this will be a good solution if it actually works that way in decentralized manner? And maybe you can tell other organizational obstacles of actually implementing CRM in large companies which have an established sales infrastructure.
I'll start with the last part of the question. Managers or any person at any level most of the time will try to protect what has already been done. Because if you change it, it kind of means sometimes that maybe they didn't do a good job or something. So change is many times of evil, many people consider it. So there will always be a degree of resistance to change. How do you overcome that? Well, the whole reason why the company exists and the reason why we get our salaries from our employers is that there is customers, and those very nice customers, they buy our products, and the owner of the company makes some profit, which means he can pay our salaries. So there is a logic to that. If you can show a business case that shows, for example, synergy effects of cross-sell between different business units, and you can put a monetary value to that, then it's pretty solid. You can also show that you can make, depends on the case, if we had different CRM systems in each of the subdivisions, then there is huge money to make in terms of IT savings to centralize it. Anytime you centralize something, there is a price. And each of these business units will tell you, if you centralize, you will not be able to run the campaigns as quickly as I can do myself now. Nor will you be able to fix the little changes in the system as fast as I can do myself now. And in 99% of the time, that's true. There is a cost for centralizing. And you need to make sure that that centralization and the savings you make definitely outweigh what is lost at each business unit level. How to build such a business case, well, I don't think we'll go into it now, but that's really how you do it.
So it's not 100% case that it should be centralized. So it can actually, in theory, work in business units. For example, they realize that they can cross-sell to other products to other businesses, and they do it.
Well, nothing is ever 100% sure. I would personally, my belief would be that in 90% of the cases, it definitely would make sense to centralize. But I'm also as sure that there are exceptions to that rule. It depends on what does the company or the corporation want from their CRM. What is the goal? You need to analyze that first before you can say that yes, definitely centralized. It's not that easy.
And you had a question?
Well, all this sounded really loud. All this analytical CRM, when done properly, it makes customers' response to your initiatives quite predictable. In your experience, were there cases when customers' behavior was different from what you expected? Did anybody surprise you, a customer segment or, well, a particular group of customers?
Well, I think they say lies, lies, damn lies, and statistics, or something like that. Don't they? The funny thing about statistics is that it's never 100% correct. And everyone knows that it's never 100% correct, but it's still better than what my simple human mind can figure out. So if I have 1 million customers, my brain cannot look at each one of these million and group them out and say, these 25, they look nice, they should have this kind of product. So what do you use instead of my little brain? We use statistics. And you can measure how effective this model, for example, the propensity model is. And you will know beforehand exactly how many replies you will get. If the model is built in a correct way, the reality will not deviate much from theory.
What's the percentage accuracy?
Well, again, it depends on if the model has been built correctly. So of course you can fail in building the model correctly, and then it will not give you the expected value. Does it surprise you? Well, sometimes I guess you would have thought that a model could work, and you actually make the selections based on this model, and you send it out to the customers, and you don't get at all the kind of reply back that you would have expected. Then it's usually because you missed something. You did it wrong, simply. And that can be expensive learnings if you do it wrong. So statistics kind of rarely surprise you if it's done correctly. But there is always a human factor in it, and that can surprise you.
Other questions? Well then, if there are no more questions, I'd like to thank once again Stefan Axelsson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to invite you next door, room 520. We have some hors d'oeuvres.